My name is Ngubevana, and I'll be covering the topic of AI-fueled organizations, how we can unlock human-centered intelligent automation. Before going into the detail of the presentation, I just want to give you guys an overview of what I'll be covering for today. And then I want to be able to give you guys context in terms of what intelligent automation is in the context of customer experience, what intelligent interactions actually look like, where organizations need to move away from being reactive in how we actually engage with customers, but have a more proactive approach. And then from there, I'll move on to touching on a few use cases where we've seen great success in terms of the use of intelligent automation that actually assist agents while they are assisting the customer. So while most AI tools like chatbots are great for fielding straightforward customer questions, the performance of simple tasks, but more complex issues are still best handled by people. In these cases, AI can be useful in assisting a human, right? And these kinds of agent AI tools can assist an agent during the call to do the heavy lifting and toggling between screens to have a unified view of the customer. They're able to generate support calls and also do the call summaries while the agent in the call. What this will do, it allows the agent to have a better engagement with the customer and focus on the more human-related type of task, while the technology in the back end actually does the heavy lifting. One way this can be achieved is via hyper-personalization, where an agent is given the opportunity to have a unified view and a near real-time data to deliver the best type of content for that specific customer, for that specific query. Customers and brands are embracing conversational AI because it provides personalized experiences that are also much quicker and convenient than the traditional ways of interacting with the business. Along with a more personalized experience, intelligent automation can also help eliminate the pain points that are generally associated with customer journeys. What we've also seen as a great benefit of intelligent automation that assists the agent is that we've seen a really good reduction in average handling times when the customer is in the call, and to a large degree, the eradication of the long turnaround times, because the agent is assisted in the call and wrapping up the call happens to be a much faster experience. Another thing that we've seen being able to be executed in the space is that customers no longer just expect instant gratification when making a purchase. They also expect lightning fast customer support. And in several customer surveys, more than half of the respondents said that the most frustrating aspect of customer service was actually waiting on hold, the slow time to respond, or the inability to have their queries or complaints resolved during the call. And through the use of human-centered intelligent automation, we're able to have large scale of integrations across multiple systems, and it eliminates the concept of having a back office or a support team trying to close off calls, because we would have the intelligent solution trying to solve the customer query as and when it happens. So what this means is that organizations need to move away from being reactive in how they engage with customers. Because if you can really think about it, right, generally there's a pain point in the customer experience, then the customer calls us. Most times we don't know why the customer calls us because we didn't even know that the customer had experienced the pain point, right? And then what ends up happening or further exacerbates the problem is that most times, I think generally due to the SLAs that exist when it comes to us engaging with customers, there's always that service level agreement that says when you are engaging with the customer, these kinds of queries will be resolved first time because they're quicker, because we're also trying to service as many customers as we possibly can. Then what ends up happening is that we then want to wrap up the call, and then at a later stage, and this is where the turnaround times then come in, at a later stage, the call will then be wrapped up by another agent in the back office, or maybe in IT support, depending on the type of query. And this means that the customer is left with that better feeling that the organization didn't know that they actually had a problem in terms of the customer experience, and it generally takes long. And in my mind, long is any time that I'm not assisted during the call for my query is long. So we need to be able to aspire to the kind of customer service that says, before a customer even calls us, so this is now almost like a perfect setup. Before a customer actually calls us, This is our customer. We should know every single experience that the customer has had with us. So that way, by the time they call us, we have an idea of why this customer is calling us. And I think before we even get to a point of a customer contacting us, we need to get to a point where we are able to proactively identify a customer pain point and see if we can't use machine learning or AI to proactively fix the problem before the customer is even aware that there is a problem. So I know that this is a perfect world scenario that might not necessarily apply to most organizations at this point in time, but that's always an aspirational point to get to, where we are able to proactively then identify a problem, be able to predict what is the next thing that the customer is going to do, and be able to then preempt how we are going to solve the problem. So that is obviously in a perfect world situation. Through the use of predictive analytics, we're able to mine customer data and do models that will be able to predict customers' propensity to act on a particular action, right? And then when we've identified that particular action, we need to know how we are going to be able to respond to the customer query or complaint. And then that way, we have a more personalized experience from a customer perspective. So what I want to do is go through some of the use cases that I've actually seen when organizations are starting to move away from being reactive in how we engage with customers, and including intelligence in how agents actually operate and how they engage with their customers. One example that I can give is when, and this is a general industry agnostic type of example, where we have customers that actually call in or send emails, to the organization. They generally request a list of things there. So imagine a situation where you've got a technology that's able to actually read the content of the email and be able to understand what the customer has requested. So in this particular case, it could be a query with an attachment where the use of optical character recognition is used to extract the images in the document via an electronic mean, where we can then understand this is a type of document and this is a type of query. And we find that when customers send queries, they would generally type out a natural way of sending queries to an organization. This is where we can then see the use of natural language understanding, which is then a technology that is used to understand the sentiment in the email and be able to then execute on the piece of requirement. And instead of having a human executing on the work, if the document has been read and understood in a functional manner, then we can hand over the process to a robotics process automation technology that will do then the execution of the code. And then if in the event that the technology that reads the document or tries to understand the customer sentiment is a bit low, right? We have the ability now to actually have a human in the loop. What a human in the loop will do is that it works alongside the technology, where we've got the OCR and the natural language understanding that has read the customer email, but it needs for a human to validate. This is where I believe then the power of the technology comes in that we will need humans to validate potential scenarios more than humans being involved in every single interaction. This allows the humans to be freed up to do higher value work or the more complex requirements. And through the human in the loop validations, this is where we can also have a machine learning type of solution that will then learn from the human. And then that way, as more emails and customer requests come through, we will be able to have a lower rate of those if scenarios that end up going to the customer for validation. And we would have more straight-through processes that get to be handled by the bot. And therefore, more customers can be serviced and therefore resulting in happy customers. Another example that I can use is in the credit and risk space, where generally a customer would take up a product, they would pay, and life goes on. But in certain instances where they default on their payment, we are generally quite reactive in nature, right? This means that the customer defaults, we then call them to try and make payment arrangements. What this then results in, the agents that call the customer have got different levels of experience, right? The agents that have been there longer know how to navigate the system. They know how to see the patterns where a customer has defaulted, and the kind of negotiation skills are quite stronger than the agents that have been in the organization for a lesser time. So what you can then do as an organization in that space where you are being reactive, is you want to be able to put an intelligent agent assist solution in the face of the agent that has a machine learning solution, right, that assists the agent in the call. What this will do is you want to almost have a machine learning solution that replicates the mind of the strongest agent. Right, the way that this can play itself out is where an agent is calling customer 123 and having a personalized experience with the customer will mean that as an agent, I will have all of the information that's required from the customer in past engagements. I can then, at a personalized level, have the machine learning solution look at the history of the customer, right? And then come to a conclusion in terms of what are the best arrangements that will suit this particular customer. Because you've seen in the past, this is a behavior, and therefore it makes sense to follow this route in terms of the negotiation part versus having a standardized approach in terms of negotiation, in terms of payment terms of the customers. But now what we also want to do is to be able to play in the space that says, looking at what's happening in the economy due to the impact of COVID, how do we then proactively identify customers that have a high propensity to actually default, right? And because we've got the past trends, right, of all the type of customers that have defaulted, what kind of customers are they? What kind of situations result in them defaulting? How have their payments been honored? You use that historical data, right, and try and proactively identify customers that have a high propensity to default. From there, what you want to be able to do is to proactively negotiate potential payment discounts or allow the customer to actually maybe downgrade in terms of the contract that they have with you. Then that way you reduce the default rate in the organization, and therefore we will have a less reactive manner in how we actually deal with the customer. And I think even from a customer experience perspective, imagine your organization calls you and says, we realize that you are going through this particular type of tough time. We realize that this is an opportunity for us to actually help you as a customer. And that kind of engagement will also make the customer have an experience that is superior, because we are proactively engaging with the customer in a meaningful manner, because we would have seen the customer trends and then be able to proactively offer them potential discounts or potential payment arrangements so that we prevent them from actually defaulting. And then that means that the customer will forever remember how we actually were proactive in how we actually helped them instead of us waiting for them to be the ones that default. Then I think another example that I can use where we've seen the movement from being proactive and reactive is in the churn management. So there's different scenarios why customers leave, in that some customers leave because of so there's certain trends that result in customers leaving generally. So you'd find that it could be poor customer experience, poor in experience with the product. They've maybe had a number of technical faults within the products that they have. And so if you look at your customer trends, certain attributes are there that will then indicate that this particular kind of customer actually has a high propensity to leave us because they've got these particular traits within their history. And this is where now the machine learning and big data comes in. You then want to be able to look at all of those trends and say, this customer has a high propensity to churn, and we want to be able to then push through those particular predictions to the account manager or the sales team or the relationship managers to say, go and engage with this customer. And the way that we even engage with the customer is even elevated in that when these predictive engines have been built, it shows you why we're saying that this customer has a high propensity to actually leave us. And then as the agent or the sales manager or account manager or relationship manager is engaging with the customer, they are then empowered, right, to say, Mr. Customer, we see that maybe you started spending less with us. Are you maybe going through financial strain, and maybe offer a customer a less expensive product because you can see that they've got a trend of maybe consuming less. And maybe sometimes the customer is downgrading in terms of their expenses. You're able to then have a more elevated, superior engagement with the customer because the machine learning solution has given you enough information for you to actually have a meaningful engagement with the customer that is more personalized. And then if you are unable to then predict, so in the case in the telco space, you find that you could be walking in the mall, and you come across a deal from a competitor. You were a happy customer, happy with the service, happy with what you were paying because you could afford it. But I mean, you came across a different deal. Those kind of customers didn't have the traits of potentially being able to leave, right? But they just came across a better deal. And so when the customer does come and say, okay, I actually want to close my account, I'm moving to a competitor, we need to be able to compete and give the customer the best counter offer in the fastest possible time. And if you think about, many organizations have several different types of products, and you'd find that it's very rare that at a click of a button, an organization can rapidly respond to say, instead of you being on this product, we think the next best product for you is this one, but we can also counter offer you and give you a better offer because we have your history. So this is where now the rapid response to churn management then comes in that if we know our customer history, we know that now there's a potential competitor that actually wants to take their deal, that we have those two pieces of information. We could then, using machine learning, look through all of our product types and match the competitive deal to the next best offer that we can offer the customer, because we couldn't we assumed the customer was happy with the product. So we want to be able to then give them that sweet offer that will actually make them stay, but at the same time still remain profitable in how we actually do those calculations and how we actually offer the deal to the customer. So what we're seeing in these combinations of technologies is that through the use of machine learning and analytics, we are able to actually elevate how the agent engages with the customer. Through simplified user interfaces, we can have technology supporting the agent and make them the best kind of agent that they could be, because we are using technology to actually assist the agent. And this is where AI-fueled organizations can actually center themselves in saying, how do we make our employees more powerful employees through the use of AI, machine learning, and RPA? Because what we've seen, the combination working well here is that there is the human touch that is still required in engaging with customers. So what we are then doing is saying, let us let machine learning be the superpower brain that it is. Let the humans focus on the empathy, persuasion that humans are good with, and then let the robot do the heavy lifting that generally nobody enjoys. Then that way, agents and customers have a unified and elevated customer experience, because technology is fitting in where a lot of humans could never be able to operate. Thank you.